Deep in southern Peru, roughly 250 miles south of Lima, across a vast, barren desert, something extraordinary is etched into the earth. A condor stretching 440 feet, a monkey at 360 feet, and a pelican an almost unbelievable 935 feet from end to end. Figures so massive, they're completely unrecognizable from the ground. These are the Nazca lines. And here's where the mystery begins. These images were made over 2,000 years ago. In an age without aircraft, without satellites, who made them? And why would anyone create images that can only be seen from the sky? For nearly a century, this question has haunted researchers. Then, in 2024, an unexpected ally entered the picture: artificial intelligence. In just 6 months, AI uncovered as many new geoglyphs as humans had found over the past 100 years combined. And those discoveries may finally give us the key to unlocking one of archaeology's greatest puzzles. So why were the Nazca lines made? And what does science tell us about the civilization that built them? The Nazca lines span roughly 174 square miles of desert in southern Peru, one of the largest artistic undertakings in the ancient world. And yet, the method behind them is surprisingly straightforward. The surface of this plateau is blanketed with coarse reddish-brown gravel, stones that have been coated in iron oxide over thousands of years. In this hyper-arid environment, iron particles carried by the wind gradually settle onto the rocks, forming a thin, dark crust, a natural process that turns the surface a deep reddish brown. Scrape away that layer of dark gravel, and what's underneath is a pale yellowish-white soil. That contrast, dark surface against bright earth, is the entire secret behind the Nazca lines. And because this is one of the driest planets on the planet, with almost no rainfall to erode them, these lines have survived virtually untouched for over 2 millennia. The Nazca lines first came to the world's attention in 1927. A Peruvian archaeologist named Toribio Mejia Expe stumbled upon them during a field survey. But the true scale of the figures didn't become clear until the 1930s, when commercial pilots began flying over the Nazca region and spotted them from the air. That discovery drew the attention of Maria Reich, a German mathematician and archaeologist who would go on to dedicate more than 50 years of her life to studying the lines. Her central argument was that the lines functioned as a massive astronomical calendar, a map of the heavens etched into the earth. And there was some supporting evidence. Certain straight lines and trapezoids on the Nazca Pampa appeared to align with the rising and setting of the sun at the summer and winter solstices. Then, in 1968, Boston University astronomer Gerald Hawkins decided to put that theory to the test, rigorously. Using a computer, he simulated the positions of the sun, moon, stars, and planets as seen from Nazca across a staggering 7,000-year span, from 5000 BC all the way to 2000 AD. Then he cross-referenced every single result against the orientations of the Nazca lines. What did he find? No meaningful correlation. None. Draw enough lines in enough directions, and by sheer chance, some will point towards something in the sky. The Nazca lines did no better than random. The astronomical calendar theory had been dealt a fatal blow, and the mystery of the Nazca lines was once again wide open. But look closely at the animals depicted in the Nazca lines, and something immediately stands out. Many of them have no business being in a desert. In 2019, a team of zoo archaeologists from Hokkaido University, led by Masaki Asada, conducted a detailed morphological analysis of 16 bird figures depicted in the Nazca lines. What they found was striking. The figure long identified as a generic hummingbird turned out to be a long-tailed hermit, a species native to the tropical rainforests east of the Andes. Figures previously cataloged as unidentified birds were reclassified as pelicans, coastal species. Another was identified as a juvenile scarlet macaw, a bird of the tropical rainforest. The monkey, too, is a tropical rainforest species. In other words, the Nazca people weren't drawing the animals around them. They were deliberately depicting creatures from entirely different worlds. As Asada put it, there would be no reason to carve an exotic bird into the desert floor unless it held deep significance for the people who lived there. And here's what makes that meaningful. The Nazca were not an isolated desert tribe. They maintained extensive trade networks that reached across the Andes and deep into the Amazon basin. In Paracas Nazca burial sites, archaeologists have found scarlet macaw feathers brought in from the rainforest and considered precious enough to adorn the dead. Stories of these forest creatures carried along the trade routes likely took on a sacred dimension for people living in a land where water was everything. These animals came to symbolize rain and abundance in a place that had neither. Across Andean cultures, spiders and monkeys were symbols of rain. Hummingbirds were associated with fertility and abundance. This wasn't unique to the Nazca. It was part of a shared symbolic language woven throughout Andean religious tradition. In his 2019 paper, Asada offered a quietly powerful conclusion. Perhaps the Nazca lines were never meant to be read from the sky at all, but were a prayer, a plea for rain, carved into the earth by people who desperately needed it. And that same thread, water, connects directly to the geometric shapes that dominate so much of the Nazca Plateau. Beyond the animal figures, the Nazca lines include more than 800 straight lines and over 300 geometric shapes. Some of those lines stretch for dozens of miles, cutting across valleys, climbing over hills, holding perfectly straight without a single deviation. Anthropologist Anthony Aveni took a close look at these geometric patterns and put forward a compelling argument. He identified more than 62 points across the pampa where straight lines and trapezoids converged, and every single one of those convergence points sits at an elevation at the headwaters of a river or stream, each one a source of water. But Aveni went further. His interpretation wasn't that the lines were a map to find water, but that they were the stage for ritual, a space for gratitude and for prayer. He proposed that the wide end of each trapezoid served as a gathering space, a kind of open plaza where large groups assembled, while the narrow end pointed the direction of a ritual procession. What people did at those water sources then wasn't practical, it was sacred. They came to give thanks for the rain and to ask for it again. And at the end of that journey stood Cahuachi. Located about 17 miles west of the modern city of Nazca, Cahuachi was the great ceremonial center of the Nazca civilization. It covers a remarkable 370 acres and contains more than 40 mounds and structures built from adobe brick. Adobe is a building material made by mixing mud and straw, pressing it into molds, and leaving it to dry in the sun. No kiln required. Because it's never fired, adobe can only survive in an extremely dry climate, which is precisely why these structures are still standing thousands of years later. The largest structure at the site is a pyramid-shaped temple rising nearly 100 feet, built entirely from those sun-dried bricks. What makes Cahuachi particularly striking, though, is what's missing: any real sign of everyday life. Ritual-painted ceramics vastly outnumber ordinary household pottery. The archaeological evidence suggests that people didn't live here permanently. They gathered periodically, performed their ceremonies, and then dispersed. So what made this place sacred? Cahuachi sits at a point where the Nasca River briefly disappears underground, and unlike the rivers and streams nearby, the groundwater at this spot never ran dry, not even in drought. For a people living at the mercy of the desert, a place where water always returned must have felt like nothing less than holy ground. Then, in 2024, a team of archaeologists from Yamagata University in Japan, led by Dr. Masato Sakai, partnered with IBM to apply artificial intelligence to the Nazca lines, and what they found may be the closest we've ever come to a definitive answer. Their analysis confirmed that the Nazca lines are densely concentrated around Cahuachi, and that the entire network of lines converges on the rivers near the temple. The conclusion was clear. The Great Nazca lines were pilgrimage routes, pathways leading the faithful toward Cahuachi. In his paper, Dr. Sakai noted that rituals were most likely performed directly on the large line-type figures, reinforcing the interpretation that the Nazca lines were a sacred landscape built around the rituals of water, gratitude, and prayer. But the most remarkable part of this research isn't the conclusion, it's what the AI found along the way. 303 previously unknown geoglyphs. The project began back in 2018. The team fed the AI 430 previously documented Nazca figures, but that dataset alone wasn't enough to train a reliable model. So they also trained it on what the geoglyphs were not: erosion marks, natural surface patterns, dried riverbeds, teaching the model to precisely distinguish human-made figures from the noise of the desert. They then digitized the entire 243 square mile Nazca pampa at a resolution of just 4 inches per pixel, divided it into a grid, and had the AI calculate the probability of a geoglyph existing in each individual cell. Archaeologists then verified the candidates in the field, by drone and on foot. In just 6 months, they confirmed 303 new geoglyphs. To put that in perspective, humanity had spent 100 years finding 430 figures. AI matched that number in half a year. That's 20 times faster than any method that came before. But speed wasn't the only surprise. What the AI found looked nothing like what we already knew. The figures we'd known about, the so-called line-type geoglyphs, stretch for thousands of feet. They can only be fully seen from the air. These are the ones tied to the geometric network, to the pilgrimage routes, to Cahuachi. The newly discovered figures, what researchers call relief-type geoglyphs, are a completely different story. Ranging from just 10 to 33 feet across, they're so small and faint that the human eye had simply passed over them for a century. And what they depict is just as different. Over 80% of the relief-type figures depict humans or human-related subjects, abstract humanoid forms, domesticated llamas and alpacas, and in some cases, severed heads. Their locations tell a story too. Rather than lining the pilgrimage routes, these figures cluster along the small footpaths that crisscross the Nazca Plain, within an average of just 140 feet from the trail. Some were carved into hillsides, clearly visible to anyone passing by on foot. The researchers put it plainly: if the massive line-type figures were messages to the gods above, the small relief-type figures were messages to the people below, travelers moving through the desert on foot. They were in effect signposts for the ancient world. There's one more detail worth noting. Most of the 303 newly discovered geoglyphs appear to predate the line-type geoglyphs entirely. That opens a new window into one of the least understood chapters of Andean prehistory, the transition from the Paracas civilization to the Nazca. And with a significant number of AI-flagged sites still awaiting verification on the ground, the mysteries of the Nazca lines may be unraveling faster than anyone expected. This has been Flat Archive. Thanks for watching.